Like I giggle at you all the time, Ryan. You got your oasis.
Mm-hmm. From my book, The Power of Having Fun.
Exactly. So all of a sudden I'm emailing you something, and I get back, I'm Dave Crenshaw, and I'm on an oasis with my family. I will be gone.
That right there, by the way, is the clip that we're going to use as a part of this show. That moment.
Go for it.
In this episode, you'll get to know David Winford, the Millionaire-Making business coach. And you'll hear the story of how he went from being raised by a single mom in a small town in East Texas to becoming one of the most prolific and profitable business coaches in the world. I'm Dave Crenshaw, and this is my Success Project. Welcome back, friends, to the Dave Crenshaw Success Project. This is the show where I'm teaching my children how to be successful through the life stories of others, and you get to come along for the ride. In case it's your first time here, I am a best-selling author. I speak around the world to Fortune 500 companies, and I've taught millions of people how to be successful through my online courses. With this show, I wanted to create something a little different. I wanted something that would help my family succeed, and I thought you'd also enjoy learning along with them. Now, in these episodes, I speak to some of the most successful people I've met, people who have balanced success in multiple areas of their lives. And today's guest is truly, truly special. I can honestly say that there is no person who has had a greater impact in my professional career than today's guest, David Winford. I can also say that in my personal life, few people have had a greater impact in my life. And I'm so thrilled that I get to share him and his story with you. We're together here in my office in Salt Lake City. Now, a couple of items of business. First, with David's permission, we will be addressing the topic of a deeply personal loss he experienced of a loved one to cancer. We handle it in a respectful way, but I wanted you to be aware in case that's a sensitive area for you. And then next, as you listen to today's episode, look for something you can do. Look for an action you can take this week, because if you do that, you will make David Winford a part of your life forever. And I promise you, this is a man you want to make a part of your life. David Winford, a small business profit expert and business coach, has been helping small business owners achieve profit growth and build multi-million-dollar businesses since 1995. David is the master of helping small business owners and his clients double their profits and create massive exponential growth for their businesses. He has a unique ability to think outside the box, and his rare talent to communicate sophisticated business strategies in a simple way makes him a popular resource for many small to medium-sized corporations. As a small business profit expert, author, and speaker, David has helped thousands of small business owners and sales professionals get the same result: established, proven businesses, leadership strategies, and more business profits. He has probably made hundreds of millionaires with his coaching, and I am certainly in that list. Winford, thank you so much for coming here to my office in Salt Lake City and agreeing to do this interview.
I love coming here and visit you guys and the family.
Yeah. Here we are in Salt Lake City. We just got done watching a Jazz game, and the last game of the season Saturday afternoon. It was pretty entertaining.
We won.
Yeah,
Jazz
exactly.
won.
I like that you said we.
Yeah,
that's the right mentality.
Well, I'm in Utah.
Yeah,
Jazz.
When we go to San Francisco, then it's the Warriors. Then it's you won versus me won.
Exactly.
We did that once.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming out here, and our family is always so excited to have you here. It really is. It's when we know that Winford's coming into town, my kids get so excited. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about it. You are definitely of the people who have had an impact in my life, and I'm including my wife in that, and my children. You're top five.
Oh, not top three.
Not top three. Not top three. You're top five.
Top five.
Okay. But really, you have had such a profound impact in my life and in my career. And so it's really special to be able to interview you for this show. I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everybody when I start this.
Fair enough.
Which is, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up? And I'm not talking about when you're a little kid. Everybody says, fireman, president of the United States. When you were in high school and you were thinking about the future, where did that begin for you?
In high school, I wanted to be a lobbyist.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. I wanted to be a lobbyist.
Why?
I just thought it was one of those things that you could have an impact on something
Okay.
and move things around. I didn't know any lobbyists. I'm from a small town, poor guy. I didn't know any lobbyists, but I had read enough and seen enough and thought it would just be one of those things that would be fun and really, again, change people's lives in a way.
It's interesting because you really are, now as I think about it, and I know your personality quite well, you really are such a persuasive person, a naturally persuasive person, because you do come from a place of caring, number one. And number two, you're not afraid to say anything.
No.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. But as I understand, like you said, you were poor. Was the prospect of that even happening for you? Did it feel realistic or did it feel really far off? Where was your mindset with it?
When I was in high school, I loved sports. I was a big sports guy, and I'm a smart guy. I wasn't always applying my smarts.
Okay.
Right. I wasn't always driven that way to do it. I did just enough to get by with what I needed to get by with to play on Friday night or play whatever it was playing.
You played football?
I played football, played basketball.
Okay.
I ran track. I did all those kinds of things, cross country. I was just an athletic kid. And so I enjoyed those kinds of things. I just didn't really have fun at school, like classwork stuff. It just wasn't something I wanted to do. And so when I was about to graduate, since we're talking about at this stage of my life, everybody was ready to go to college, but I really wasn't ready to go to college. But, to be a lobbyist, you're going to have to go to law school.
Right.
You're going to have to go to college. And so
did you have family members who had gone to college, or was that?
Well, my aunt had started going to college, but I was the first one to go to college.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And I didn't last long. I stayed about a semester. And then I was just ready to get out of my little small town, and I joined the military, and away I went.
Okay. We'll talk about entering the military in a moment. What was home life for you growing up? Because not everything about it was smooth or easy.
Oh,
correct?
no. I was raised, by a single mom. My father was a drug dealer back in the days.
Oh.
And most of my life, he was in prison. And so I remember going to visit him. My grandmother would take us to visit him and things like that. So it wasn't easy, and again, this is the 70s when I'm growing up.
And you were growing up where?
In Southeast Texas, Orange, Texas.
Orange, Texas. Okay.
Yeah. So Southeast Texas as you can get. And so, we lived in trailer parks. I was a trailer park trash guy before it was cool. I was a latchkey kid before it was cool.
Before it was cool.
Because my mom was a single mom and I was the oldest kid. And so it was my brother at the time, and she would, tell us to go home from school and stay at home until we weren't going to practice or whatever it was, and until she got back home. And so I would have to watch my brother. So it was my mom did the best she could do with the whole thing. But yeah, it wasn't the easiest thing. So when you're dreaming to be a lobbyist and you're coming from a trailer park, it's a big dream.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Did you have any interaction with your father later on in life, or did that drop off?
Yeah. The last time I saw my father, I think I was like 10 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the last time I had any kind of engagement with him.
All right.
Yeah.
So tell me the story that now I think is part of our family's lore, because I've reshared it. I think you've shared it. Please talk to me about how you got recruited into the military, because I think some people follow that path. And how did they recruit you? How did that work out?
Okay. So I wasn't really recruited in any kind of way. At the time when I graduated high school, I started to work for the Texas Highway Patrol and on their dispatch from 11 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Okay. So you're 18, 19 years old.
Wow. And you're hearing pretty intense stuff, I'm guessing. In that.
You're hearing road stuff at the time.
Okay.
It's nothing big, crazy in any kind of way.
Okay.
Yet that age, and the reason why I'm sharing with that age is because most of my friends are out partying at 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And so,
sure,
you're sitting there working and you're thinking, dang, why do I have to be here working? And then not only that, you're there by yourself. And so you have all this time to really think about, what are you doing? Where are you going? How's it, what's happening? And then on top of that, my high school took off to go to college.
As they do.
As everybody does, right?
Right.
They take off and go to college. And so I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something different. I wanted to get out of the small town. And I didn't want to be sitting there working from 11 to 7 o'clock at night. So on my way home one day, there's what we call a Parkdale Mall. There was a mall. But on the way from the facility where I was working towards Park Desert Mall, there's always a sign that says, be all you can be, join the military, join the Navy, whatever it was.
Sure.
So I pulled in, but it's 7:00 in the morning and no one's there. And so I pull up and I notice it's closed. So I fall asleep. Well, if anybody's from Southeast Texas, you realize it gets hot, and it was hot.
Oh.
And so it got hot and I woke myself up. The heat did. So I woke up and it was like 8:30 by that time. So then I walked in and there was a recruiter there and it just so happened to be a Navy guy.
No matter what your career is, your foundation of success begins with one thing: effective time management. And thanks to the generosity of Microsoft, you can get my entire course, Time Management Fundamentals, for free on LinkedIn Learning. Go to davegift.com to get your free access now. This is the course that millions around the world have used to become more productive and reduce stress. Everyone from Fortune 500 executives to freelancers to students. Now, it's the same coaching I've provided in person for tens of thousands of dollars per day, but you can get it for free on LinkedIn Learning. You don't need to provide anything to access it. No credit card, no email. Just go to davegift.com and start learning. Thank you so much, Microsoft and LinkedIn Learning, for your partnership. davegift.com.
So it wasn't a choice. You
No.
would, if it had been Army, you would have talked to Army. It wouldn't have made a difference.
It wouldn't have made a difference to me. I was leaving.
Yeah.
I was leaving. I wanted to leave. So I walked up to this guy and I said, hey, I'm ready to go. He goes, where are you going? I said, wherever you tell me to go, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to sign up. Let's go. And he's like, it doesn't work that way. And I said, well, how does it work? And he says, well, you got to take a test and you got to do this and this and this. I said, well, let's take the test. So I take the test and I score really high. I mean, I'm not a dumb guy. I'm a smart guy. I score really high on their little ASVAB test. And so he says, well, you scored high enough. You could do a lot of these different jobs in the military or in the Navy. And I said, well, which one's going to let me go the soonest? Which one can I leave like tomorrow? And he's like, what are you running from? Where are you going? I said, I just want to get out of here. So what's the soonest? So he looked it up and he says, oh, you can go to gunner's mates. You can be a gunner's mate. I didn't know what a gunner's mate is. I could care less what a gunner's mate is. I said, when do they leave? He says, 30 days from now. I said, signs me up. That's how I got in.
So I want to pause on that for just a second because I think it's an illustrative moment to the kind of person you are.
Yeah.
It's not that you do things without thought. It's not that you're careless, but you are very fearless and not afraid to try something new.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so in this case, you're like, well, sure, why not? Why not do that? Because it's going to work out at some point. Is that what you when you do things like that, are you thinking it's got to work out? It's got to be a good thing. Is there any doubt in your mind that I think a lot of people listening to this will go, I can't do that because I got to think about this and this and this, and they're thinking about all the consequences of signing up for the Navy and being a gunner's mate, and you're like, man, this just seems like a good path.
Well, again, I wanted to get out of something, so I was really running.
Okay.
I wasn't running from somebody. Again, running from small town, running from my situation, not having enough money, not having those kinds of advantages. I just didn't think I had the advantages.
Yeah.
And at the time I wasn't thinking of those things. And a lot of time now that I'm older, I think about what the consequences are of something or if I make a move on something. But most of the time I'm already 99% of the way there. And then I'm trying to say, okay, what's going to slow me down or what would get in my way with this kind of thing? And that particular situation, it really was about just getting out of my current situation and trying to find another situation. And it seemed like it was the path that would allow me to do that swiftest. Right.
Okay.
Because heck, I had friends that, all of a sudden they're working on a shrimp boat or they decided to do all kinds of different things if you weren't going off to college. Right. So I just wasn't ready to go to school. And the funny thing was that I didn't think I was going to have to do that much learning or education or training right?
in the
military.
In the military.
In the military. So it was kind of funny because I'm thinking, oh, okay, I just go there and, I don't have to take any more tests. I don't have to do any of these kinds of things, But then you get into boot camp and, you realize that you got to learn the UCMJ and, Uniform Code, military justice. I mean, you have to learn all these things.
There's something to be said for being young, energetic, and naive, isn't there?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Well, I like to say now, as an old guy, I like to say I'm a Bob Seger kind of guy, right? So I like to say, he has a lyric and I'm going to butcher it, but this is the way I hear it. Some men go wherever they want to go. Other men never go at all.
Mm.
And so I like to be that guy who goes wherever I want to go. And that's just the way it goes.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad you used that too, because we were listening to Bob Seger on the way back from that Utah Jazz game.
Yeah, because you asked me.
What do you want to listen to? That's what we put on. It was great. Okay. So talk to me about the story of the two lines.
Okay.
Because this is a turning point, but it's a fun story.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll make it swift so I don't make it too long. But in the Navy, you're going to learn, they give you a swim test.
Okay.
And when you go to do the swim test, I happen to be going to Great Lakes, Illinois. So it was in October and it was very cold outside.
Mm.
And so they got us all lined up and they've got these different lines, yet the other two lines are smaller. I just don't know what those other lines are, but I'm in a long line and I'm seeing it's not moving as fast. And then I hear one of the instructors say something about the line and I moved to the smaller line.
Just because you wanted to get out of the
I did not want to be in the cold. I did not. And I just hadn't adjusted to standing in the line yet.
That would come later.
Yeah. I just didn't want to stand in the line anymore. And I thought it was kind of ridiculous that the lines were short and nobody was moving towards the lines.
Right.
The problem was that I just didn't hear what he was saying. So then when I got to the line, we started to move into the building, which is where the big swimming pool is. And so then I started to see what the longer line was doing. So they were taking their dungarees off and we all had our swim shorts underneath there. And I saw that they would line them up like 6 or 7 across. They jump in, they tread water for, a minute, and then they swim to the end of the pool and they get out of the pool.
Okay.
I'm thinking, heck, this is no big deal. I've been in the water all my life. I ain't no problem jumping in the water and get out of there. All of a sudden, the instructor starts to say, okay, strip down. You're going to jump in, you're going to tread water, you're going to swim 600 yards, you're going to get out, you're going to do push-ups, pull-ups, chin-ups, and then you're going to run a mile and a half. And as he's saying this to me, I've got this funky look in my face like, what did this guy say? What is he saying? So I go to raise my hand, and that's a no-no. So I go to raise my hand to say something, and the guy's like all over me. So I won't use the colorful language that they use at boot camp to let you know that you're not supposed to be talking or whatever it is. But I'm sure people who out there who've been in the military understand what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, you've seen enough movies to know that.
Probably.
Yeah, don't do it. And so I go to do all this stuff, and all along the way, I'm thinking to myself, what the heck did I do? Why did I, what the heck was this line? And so ultimately, at the end of it, at that time, this is 1984. 1985, they position you either EOD, Deep Sea, or UDT or SEAL team based on the score.
Okay.
And so,
what is EOD?
EOD is explosive ordnance disposal.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Deep Sea diver or hard hat guys, they're the guys who are diving deep and doing things like that. And then, of course, most people know about the SEALs. Guys.
And that's the category they put you in?
Based on my score. Yeah.
Okay.
I just didn't know what that score was. They don't tell you what that score is. You never pay attention to that score.
Okay.
Until later on down the line when you learn that they're looking for the smartest guys. So the top 3 guys in each class, when you go to Gunner's Mate School after boot camp, and again, this is way back then. It's totally different now. They have it's a total different way of doing things now. So I was a top 3. I was the 3rd guy. And so they come in and they give you orders. And so you pick by the rank. So number 1 guy goes first, number 2 guy goes, and then number 3. I wanted to leave. I wanted to go to Sardinia, Italy. And sure enough, Sardinia, Italy is sitting up on the board. So I'm thinking I'm going to go to Sardinia, Italy because I know the first 2 guys had left the service for a period of time and came back. And one wanted to go to West Coast and one wanted to go to the East Coast.
Okay.
Right. So I think I'm in. Right. And they go to pick and they pass me up. And I'm like, why are you passing me up? I'm the 3rd guy. I find out that I'm going to Coronado. And so I go to Coronado.
And Coronado is where the training is?
Yeah, where Spec Ops training is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's where I go. So that was the military. So when I joined the military, then I learned that I had to be the top guy. So all of a sudden it became, wow, I have to study. Wow, I have to learn these things. If I want to participate at this highest level, I have to be the smartest guy in the room. Now, I wasn't always the smartest guy in the room, but nobody outworked me. Right?
Okay.
That was what I would say to you. You know, I was a flashcard guy. I learned differently. So I have to repeat things over and over again. But once I get it, then it's in there and I'm locked in. And so I was a flashcard guy. And so what I learned along the way was that I would look at these flashcards, and I made it a rule for every night before I went to sleep, I'd read through my flashcards. And so, yeah, what would happen was, you know, as you're going through the weeks of training, right? But every night I would read through that flashcard deck.
Were other guys doing that?
No, they were doing flashcards, but they weren't reading them every night, right? And so it would come to a point where, you know, and again, the interesting thing about the military is that everything's accumulative. It's just not take a test and forget about it. You're going to take that with you. And so the way I did it was, and again, the reason why I did it that way is just because it was my way of learning. I just didn't learn. There was guys that were sharp as all kinds. They would, you know, they hear something one time and boom, they got it. I wasn't that kind of guy. I'm not that kind of guy. And so I just process it differently. So I'm reading these flashcards over and over again. And, you know, 26 weeks go by and you got a deck of flashcards and I'm reading them all right? Yet I'm scoring high on all my exams because, again, I'm prepared. I didn't forget the stuff before.
Yeah.
Because I'm going over it all the time. And then anything that was new, all of a sudden you started seeing, wow, there's just patterns here. There's just, oh, I get the connection between what we did in week 1 versus what we're doing week 10.
Sure.
Right? So all of a sudden you start to see the connections, those kinds of things. So I did that throughout my whole military career, 9 years.
Where did the discipline to do that come from? Did that come from your mom? Was that just internal?
A gift from one of the older guys.
Really?
One of the older guys was leaving.
Oh.
One of the older guys. When I was coming in to check into my unit, a guy was graduating from his unit. And so we're at the locker room right there, right? Angelo Fiore is his name. We're at the locker there, and I'm putting my junk in my locker, and he's taking his junk out of his locker. And he looks over at me and he says, hey, you want some flashcards?
Oh, wow. So it wasn't just, hey, do this. It wasn't just advice. He actually gave you the tool.
He gave me a set of flashcards, right? And so then he said to me, hey, do yourself a favor. Read these every day.
Wow.
Right? So that was just a gift that I heard.
Yeah.
And I grabbed and I did it, not because someone put a bullet to my head or a gun to my head or anything like that. It was just like I heard that. I was like going, wow, he's leaving. He's graduating. He's rolling on. But I'm coming in.
So did he say that to you or did he say that to everybody?
2 dudes in the locker room. Him and me.
Okay. Because I want to point this out, though, because, yes, it was a gift. Mm-hmm. But yes, it was also your choice.
Yes.
Right? Because a lot of young guys are, oh, whatever, old man, or whatever. I don't need that. Yeah. You recognized this is something that's going to help me, and so I'm going to take advantage of this.
Yes. Yes. Because, again, I didn't hide the cards. Everybody could see what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yet it takes time to do that. Yet, and also, people didn't realize that my rule was before I go to sleep every night, I read through these cards. Right.
Right.
So all of a sudden, by the 10th week, 11th week, all of a sudden I'm at the top of the class, and everybody's like, going, what the heck? It just became smoother and easier along the way because I was learning it. Yeah. But not only learning it, but I was knowing it. Then on top of it, what I loved about the military was that you could live it, meaning that you're learning something in a classroom one moment, and the next moment you're outside doing it. That's how I learn. That's my process.
Yeah, hands-on.
Yeah, I'm a hands-on dude. I know the fastest way to my dreams is education. I do know that. Okay. Yet I also know that for me, that's just one piece of it. I have to go touch it. I have to feel it. I have to move it around. I have to engage with it. Right. And that was the beautiful thing about the military was that's the way you would learn. I wish I'd have done that back in high school. It might have been a different kind of thing.
I wish they even had that as a way of teaching.
Yeah. Right. But they don't teach it that way.
Yeah. Well, what I like about that, though, is I see the connection there with what you continue to do with entrepreneurship coaching.
Yes.
That is the joy of entrepreneurship, which is we're not just talking theory. We're not sitting in a classroom talking about finance or here's how to market. We're talking about it and then we're doing it. And it's also to a level that someone who maybe is working for a larger Fortune 500 company doesn't have the same opportunity because they got to go through the red tape because they got to get permission for it. You tell an entrepreneur to do something, they can do it today. They can do it in an hour. And so that sort of learning style that worked for you is also applicable to the people that you now coach.
Yeah. And I frequently say to my clients, hey, digest it, process it. But remember, we're thinking strategically. So sooner or later, we have to put it in action so that we can go make these things happen. You got goals. You have visions. So now we have to create these action steps to move forward to get to where we want to go. And, I learned those kinds of things again in the military. That's one of those things that when people ask me, what'd you think about the military was a gift to me. And it truly was, it was a gift because it taught me a lot of those kinds of things, to think strategically, to look through things, have a plan, have a backup plan, all those things that entrepreneurs need to do. It became natural to me once it was taught. Now it's really in my DNA. And then on top of that, again, I just learned that you have to go study. You have to gain knowledge. You have to constantly be investing in yourself with knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's why I like to say, and it's not my quote, I think it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's quote where he says something along the lines of, the fastest way to your dreams is through education. Right. And so whatever education means to you, it doesn't necessarily mean, 4-year institution or something like that. It just means that you've got to constantly be investing in yourself so that you're at the top of the game at all times.
Yeah.
Right?
Every situation you're in is an educational opportunity if you view it that way.
Absolutely. I mean, heck, I remember when we first started working together. I mean, to see you now, you went to work. You went to study. You went to learn something. You had a goal about something. And yes, did it shift along the way? Yes, it did. That's just because you were getting clear about what you truly wanted to do, how you truly wanted to impact the world. So, you can see it, and you're sitting here with me. So a testament to the process,
right? That
says, hey, you can start out one place. And I've been blessed enough to see you all over, right? I know people know your history, I'm sure. So,
yeah. So at some point we'll tell that story in another episode.
But I've seen you go all over where you were searching for what you were trying to do. You were strategically trying to get someplace, yet you were searching, and to do that, you were investing in yourself. And so you went out and got some education.
And this is kind of what I was hinting at before with your story of doing the recruiting. Underlying everything that I've seen you do, Dave, is an optimism. A belief that if you don't know the answer, you're going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to me a little bit about where that mindset comes from and why you view life that way? That's not a gift that every person has. A lot of people are very pessimistic about what's going to happen, or they doubt themselves. Mm-hmm. I know that you're humble enough to know that you don't know everything, but I also know you well enough to know that you're going to find the answer to something.
Yeah, I think I'm naturally a curious guy.
Okay.
And I'm naturally a adventurous kind of guy. And I don't mind making mistakes. I don't like to make the same mistake twice, but I don't mind making a mistake because I learn a lot from a mistake. I personally do, right? So the optimism there has to be about, again, just being a poor guy trying to get someplace. And I frequently say to my own kids who are in a different spot now, they don't have to fight all the time to get to where they're going. I've always felt like I had to fight to where I'm going. So I use this saying to my kids. I say, in my lifetime, and it's still to this day, I feel I have to bang the doors down. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, I remember you talking to me about this. It's great. It's a great principle.
Yeah, my kids go around shutting the door because more doors are open to them. So I just find the energy and the thought process totally foreign to me because I'm trying to bang down doors to get where I want to go. I didn't have anybody on the inside. I didn't have any, there was no nepotism where I was going to come from because I was coming from a trailer park. And yes, once I got in the military and I got good at what I was doing, did I know some people and I gained a reputation? Yes. And so some things started to happen for me because of those kinds of things. Yet when I left the military, I was starting all over again. I didn't know anybody in anywhere. And so I felt like I always had to bang the door down. I still like that way too, but my kids go around shutting doors because the opportunities are wide open.
Well, but that's the gift you gave them.
Yes.
You gave them the opportunity to have any door.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And now they're choosing. And so I think what you're hoping is they still work hard and they're still pushing hard, but that maybe they are grateful for
I want their ambition I want their ambition level. You want people's ambition level to be just as high as yours. And that gets me in trouble a lot of times too, because even when I work with a client, sometimes I buy into their story more than they buy in their own story.
Boy, is that true.
Right. And so all of a sudden I feel like I'm dragging somebody to get to where I'm going. I'm like going, why are you shooting yourself in the foot? What's going on? Why do we keep going in circles? We know where we're going. Just come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Everybody processes differently, right? And so that's what I would say to you. But so optimism, I think I've always been a half full guy. Do I get down on some things? Yeah, sometimes I get down, and sometimes I think, dang, why couldn't I just have a daddy who knows somebody who can get me into the door? Why do I always have to take the hard path?
Yeah, those are old thoughts though. Now you don't.
Oh
have
yeah,
those
I don't
thoughts
worry about them now.
Yeah.
Now I bang all the doors down. I go walk in the door myself.
So let's at least pull maybe a story or two out of the military experience, because that's a big part of your life and your background.
Well, it's 10 years of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It influenced me, but like I say to people, it doesn't define me. Just like what I'm doing now doesn't define me. You and I were talking about earlier, sometimes I get asked, what do you do? And I always ask the question now, do you want to know what I do, or do you want to know who I am?
That's a great question.
Okay. So, because to me, who I am is different than what I do sometimes. Who I am lends to what I do, yet it doesn't define me. I can change it tomorrow if I wanted to change it tomorrow.
Okay.
So that's part of my optimism.
Okay. So then let me reframe this question about the military experience. What is a story that helped shape who you are, and perhaps still helped shape the coaching and the leadership that you provide to people? Can you think of a moment that, I'm sure it's been built over time, but one moment that sort of illustrates it, something that you gained in the military experience?
I will share the story with you. I think it's a funny story because I'm already a diver. I'm already a military guy doing special ops and doing those kinds of things. So one day I come into my dive locker and I say to the guys, hey, I'm going to go become a PADI scuba instructor.
Okay.
All right. So you got the He-Man, right? And then also you get this PADI scuba instructor. Like, what? And they gave me a hard time. They razzed me so hard. They razzed me, man. I can't even tell you how they razzed me. All right. Oh man, what's wrong with you? Where are you going? Blah, blah, blah. So again, think about it. There I am in that moment. I'm walking in the door to somebody who I love, people who I trust and love, and sharing something with them that I want to do, and they poo-poo on the idea, right? And they're all over it, busting my chops and everything, right? And so, yet in that moment, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, I'm still going to do it. I'm going to do it, and you're going to work for me. And that's what I said to them. Trust me, guys, you're going to work for me.
Oh, nice.
I walk out the door, and my buddy, Angelo Fiore, who I met a long time ago, who gave me the flashcards, we got stationed together again.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so he was so funny. He was one of the guys ribbing me. But he walks out the door, and he says to me, that my nickname is Winnie. So he says, Winnie, he says, are you serious about this thing? I said, oh, yeah, I'm serious. He goes, I think I want to do it with you. And of course, I said, get the heck out of here. I don't want to hear your crud anymore. You just was in there razzing me, all kinds of crud.
Yeah.
I said, but now you're going to jump on the boat. He said, oh, yeah, no. He said, but just don't tell anybody. So for a while, no one knew that he was going to the same classes that I was going to become this outside instructor to teach people how to scuba dive, to become a scuba instructor.
What does that say about who you are now? What does that story illustrate?
So that says to you that I bring an idea to somebody. I'm pretty set on what I'm going to do, yet it could get all poo-pooed out. Yet I'm still going to go, even though you don't think it go, right? There's that old saying, 67% of people opt out instantaneously. I'm not an opt-out guy, right?
You're an opt-in to almost everything.
I'm an opt-in guy. Sometimes I catch myself, and it just happened to me with one of my clients recently, where I caught myself opting out, and then and the meeting wasn't a very good meeting. The meeting was a really rough meeting. And we get off the phone, and then the next meeting, he says to me, hey, that last meeting of mine, I didn't really like it. It was really tough. He says, well, I said, I want you to know something. I'm sorry. I was trying to find a way to opt in, but my natural body was telling me to opt out.
Wow.
Right? And so when I said that to him, he goes, really? He goes, you really was trying to find a way? I said, listen to me. I heard myself opting out, but I was trying to find a way to opt in, but you weren't giving me the information to opt in.
Okay, so there are two things about that it says a lot about. Okay. I don't think every coach possesses these things. Number one is the humility that it takes for you to recognize about yourself in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's also self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
That you're doing that, and to be able to say that to him. And then the respect that you have for your client to candidly say that to them so that they have an opportunity to understand what's going on, and also so that they have an opportunity to maybe look at their goal or their vision or whatever it is from a different perspective that they hadn't considered.
Yeah. Well, that's what you're doing as a business coach. You're trying to get them to see the different points of view. Ultimately, they're going to make the decision, right? Yet my job is to share with them all those different points of view based on all the experience I had with all my own clients, my own life experience, those kinds of things. And then my experience of them sharing with me their primary aim, sharing with me their strategic goals and their strategic vision and their values and principles. So then I become the mirror. I'm really holding up the mirror and saying, hey, you said these things are valuable to you, yet what you're about to do doesn't seem like it's going to run in that. Sometimes I bypass that in the moment. It's the heat of the moment of the conversation. And so that's why I'm sharing that story with you where, I'm catching myself opting out, but I also catch myself trying to find a way to opt in. And so I'm struggling with my own junk. At the same time, I'm struggling with his junk. Right. And so,
because that's your role, you've taken that on yourself to help him.
Yeah. And so that gets me back to, again, there I am trying to tell these guys I want to do something that's beyond the military. It's a vision beyond the military.
Right.
I wanted to do 20 years in the military and then retire from the military at be 48 years old.
Okay.
And live on an island and teach scuba. That was my ultimate dream of using the military as the vehicle to get where I was going to go. Right. Now, a lot of stuff happens along the way.
Right.
All right. Therefore, I never lived on an island. So I don't want your audience to think I went to live on an island.
No, you didn't.
I did something better. I found a woman that was the love of my life kind of thing. So, and then had a family and all those other kinds of things. But there I was trying to better myself, invest in myself. I just didn't call it that in those days. Yet I was seeing something beyond the military, whereas most people don't. Now, I will fast forward this to you. Angela Fiore went through the class together with me. We both became PADI instructors. He now is the big kahuna at this National Association of Underwater Instructors. He's one of the big kahunas in the diving industries.
Wow.
Yeah. So from a dude who was poo-pooing me.
Right. Well, and
credit to him. He did it.
Credit to him that he did it.
Yeah.
But credit to you that you, in a way, almost returned the favor. You gave him a gift. Because you gave him a vision and a thought that either he didn't have, or he played around with the back of his head but didn't have the confidence to go ahead until he heard you say that.
Yeah.
And also to see you say, I don't care what you guys are saying. You can give me as hard a time you want. Yeah. I'm still going to do it. That was a gift to him.
Yeah. And, he had ideas. I remember we were sharing about how he wanted to do certain things. Yet at the time he didn't think about it, but I was going to go do it. And so I just did it. And so, again, that's me banging down a door. That's me walking into a guy. I see a Navy guy teaching a bunch of Navy guys how to scuba dive. I walk up to him and I say, his name was Scott Kane. I said, hey, Scott, what's this deal here? He said, I teach scuba lessons. I'm like, oh, wow. Is there a way I can? He says, sure. Now, I paid my money and did my due and carried my scuba tanks and carried his scuba tanks and did the hard work that you got to do it. But we did it and we passed it. And so to wrap it back, that's me giving you an example of me being positive, me being invested in myself, me saying, hey, it's half full, me not necessarily stopping and thinking about any kind of repercussions in any kind of way.
I love it. You've lived such a rich and full life, and there's so much more that you've done outside of the military. Oh, yeah. I do want to ask you one more question around that, though, because we're not going to get through all the stories of your experience. I'm going to put you on the spot here in this interview. I still want you to write a book just about your life story.
Oh, that's funny.
And I've mentioned it before that I would hire a ghostwriter to interview you. I'm going to put that on the table again because I think your stories are so I'm very serious about that. So I just want to ask one more question, though. Mm-hmm. Is there a moment from that time in the military, or is there a lesson that you learned from an instructor or from someone else that you replay regularly in your head and it still influences the kinds of decisions that you make?
Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it.
Well, that sounds familiar.
Done deal.
Did I get that from you?
Yeah.
You think I got that from you? Because I say that all the time.
I hope you did. That's what I learned. That's what I learned. The second big thing I learned, right, is when you screw up, admit you screwed up, and then find the plan to fix it. Wow. So when you walk in the door, you know you screwed up. We all know when we screw up, right? There's no secret to it. But yet those were the moments when I learned from the older guys, the chiefs and stuff, where they said, I remember I did something and I got caught doing it, and it wasn't the right thing to do. And I started to try to explain my way out because, as you said earlier, I can sort of maneuver and move things. Shut it down. I do not want to hear that.
I don't want to hear your excuse.
I want you to tell me you effed up. And then I want you to tell me there's a plan. So if you're not ready to do that, walk back out that door. And when you walk back in that door, be ready to say that you effed up and then have a plan. So I'm looking at him and I'm like going, well, I'm not ready to say, I don't know what, I'm still processing. I got to admit that I effed up, right? Yeah. And then I'm like, I don't have no plan. So I turned around and walked out the door. Right? And about an hour or 2 hours later, I come back in and I said, hey, Chief, I think it was Chief Miller. I said, Chief Miller, I really screwed up. And I apologize. And I wasn't thinking, I didn't see this and I didn't see that and da-da-da-da-da. And here's how I'm going to fix it.
Yes.
So he looked at me. He looked at me and he says, go do it. That was the end of the conversation. Go do it. So when he did that to me, from that point forward, it was easy for me to walk in the room and say, hey, listen, I screwed up, but here's my plan. Because I'm expecting the guy on the other end of the side to go do it. And sure enough, that has always been my experience. It's always been my experience, no matter civilian world, military world, whatever it is. If I walk in the door and say, hey, listen, I screwed up. I did this, and this. Yet here's how I think we can go fix it. No one says anything.
Right. It's actually empowering to take responsibility for it. And I bet that's something you teach to your business coaching clients too.
Absolutely. I say, hey, listen.
To be an entrepreneur is to fail.
Yeah. You got it. As I said earlier, I don't mind failing. I don't mind making the mistakes. I just don't want to make the same mistake twice. So that means that I've got to own up to the mistake so that way I don't make it twice. And then create the plan so that I don't go through the same thing. Yeah. And that's strategic thinking, which most entrepreneurs don't do because they're all technicians. Yet that's part of our job to do, is to teach them how to think strategically.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be the lesson in the military. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it would be the big one. And the second one is when you mess up, say you messed up, but come in with a plan. So I gave you two.
Yeah, you did. Gift. That's great. It's an extra gift there. Okay. So I know that there were a few things in there. You worked in the finance industry. You left the military for a little bit. You worked in the finance industry.
I left the military for good. I did 9 years, 3 months, and 26 days. Right. And I felt like there's some stuff in there that I needed to get away from the military around. And I was married. I just got married. And so being in the military, doing what I was doing, you need to be gone all the time. And it wasn't going to be healthy for a relationship. And so I knew that. And so the accumulation of a lot of things said it was time to get out. And so I got out. And when I got out, I was married to a beautiful, smart lady, was 5 rungs up the ladder past where I was at, right? And so therefore, she had high expectations for me.
How did you meet Alla?
I met her at a bar.
Okay.
I met her Houlihan's down at San Francisco. And that's where I met her. And, I was down in San Diego. She was up in San Francisco. So we'd bounce back and forth with each other and see each other periodically. And then ultimately we got married and created a beautiful life together. And so she just had an ambition for me. So when I, even though I was a, military guy, basically a blue collar guy, then while I was in the military, I went to school. So I've got my undergrad and my master's while I was in the military. So again.
And what did you study?
I studied accounting and I studied finance. And so she was saying, hey, you got to get out and you got to go make the money. Because in the military, we didn't make that much money. That was getting all kinds of crazy different pays because of this, but your life was at risk. So I went to work for Visa International. Okay. And I went to work for Visa International for a couple of years, but I didn't like the suit stuff. I didn't like it.
You really don't like it, and I'm going to pause for a second there. And I know that you don't like it so much that you do something to remind yourself that you don't like it. What's that practice that you have?
Yeah,
So you live in Moraga,
I live in Moraga, which is close to San Francisco.
Okay.
And so periodically, earlier in my life, so that I didn't think I was making the wrong move, knew that I was making the right
by
move.
Going independent.
By going independent, or just taking a smaller job at that time, but more importantly, to going independent. Mm-hmm. I would put a suit on and go to the city, and I would pick a building, and I would go in the building, and I would just get on the elevator with whoever was getting on the elevator, and I'd ride up to wherever I wanted to get off at, and I'd get off the floor, and I'd start walking the floor. And what I realized was that there's all these cubicles and all this bad light, and it just looked like, hamsters, just on the wheel. So it was just people not looking happy, right? I would walk those halls.
Not your choice.
Not my
what
style,
you want.
not what I wanted.
Right.
I didn't mind. I look good in a suit, I didn't mind getting in a suit. I look good in a suit. But it wasn't about the suit. It was about going there every day, doing that every day. And I was like, oh my goodness.
So you just do that every couple of years or so?
I do that periodically whenever I feel like I'm questioning whether I'm in the right space, the right place in my life with things like that. And so I do that silly thing. And I'm always amazed. No one says anything to me. You know what I'm saying? I walk in the building. I haven't done it since COVID started. I haven't done that.
Sure.
And I probably did it. Let's see here. So this is 2023. I bet you I did it in 2016. I think there was something going on in my life. 2014. I did it right around then.
So, but it doesn't surprise me that no one says anything to you because, again, that's just who you are. You just
I have the air.
You always seem like you belong where you've chosen to belong. Yeah. That's something that I am envious of you as your gift to be able to put yourself in any situation. And it's like, oh, well, he belongs here. Your confidence.
People would ask me questions. People start asking me questions. Hey, you the new hire, right? And I'd say, yeah. And they'd say, oh, and they'd be a new hire. Oh, well, good. I'm a new hire. The indoctrination is going to be. I said, I think it's going to be over there in that boardroom. And then I'd walk away because I got caught, right? So, yes, that's the story.
Okay, so that reminds you that you don't want to do that. So was it from Visa that you made the transition to the eMyth Academy and Michael Gerber? Is that
I had a mentor, a good friend of mine I consider a mentor, Igor Cherkis. His company was using Gerber for coaching, and he suggested that I go to an interview.
Okay, so for those who aren't familiar, let's
Michael Gerber.
Very briefly explain who Michael Gerber is and his book. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it. But just
I got to work for Michael Gerber, who's considered the OG of business coaching and business development. He wrote a bunch of books, but the one that's most popular is The E-Myth, Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work.
Which is short for entrepreneurial myth.
Right, the entrepreneurial myth, yeah. And so he wrote that book. So I went through that hiring process, and I got hired. And so then I went for Michael, and that's ultimately how I got this gift of being able to coach. It changed my life. I mean,
changed my life.
It changed lives because it gave me an access to do something that I want to do the way I want to do it and make good money. Right? All of a sudden, I'm able to climb up out of the ladder. Now, at the first, I wasn't able to do that because Michael didn't pay very well back in those days. And in fact, I had to come home and tell my wife, baby, I'm leaving Visa to go work for this company up in Santa Rosa, which was, an hour and a half drive for me now. So all of a sudden there's things. And, by the way, I'm going to take a $40,000 pay cut. But baby, I promise you, 3 years max. At the end of the 3 years, I'm going to walk out. I will know how to run this business. I will know it, and I'll go do it on my own. And my wife was such a beautiful person that she believed in me. She said, go do it. So we did it.
So, okay. Boy, there's so much here to unpack. There's a ton to unpack here. And part of it, admittedly, it's because I'm in this story a little bit.
Yes.
So the interesting thing I'm going to highlight here, and we might want to come back to it, is, again, that concept of someone gave you a gift and you gave them a gift with the vision. And that choice that you made with your wife gave me a gift.
Yeah.
Because you're exiting. So for those who are not familiar, I'll try to condense it. But so while Dave was working as a hired coach for eMyth. In-house, I became an independently certified coach. I was 23 at the time, had not yet graduated from college, still studying entrepreneurship. And that's where we met, and they assigned you as my trainer. But your previous decision to say 3 years and I exit was what was a catalyst for me exiting and having the confidence to say, you know what, I got some great things out of this. I'm going to create my own material. I'm going to create my own thing from it.
Yeah, you did it.
Yeah.
You did it.
Well, and I did it because of your...
Oh, I appreciate that.
Because like you did before, you went into the room and you said, gentlemen, this is what I'm going to do. And everybody goes, what are you doing? You're crazy.
Yeah.
But you made that choice. And
I remember going to dinner with Michael. Michael was going to make me the VP of something. I don't remember what the heck, a VP of his business. And he says, I said, Michael, it's not for me. And he said, oh, we got to go to dinner. So he sets up dinner and I go to dinner with him. He explains this whole thing about being a VP or whatever. And I had already made a commitment to my wife. Do what I'm saying I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it. I'd already made a commitment, and we were coming up against the 3-year mark, right? And so I'm saying to Michael in dinner, Michael, it's just not for me. I'm ready to go. And Michael says to me, you don't get it. So in that moment, he's telling me, you're doing it wrong. You're not going to be
which is something you never say to David Winford.
Exactly. Right? So in the moment, he's telling me I'm not going to get it. And I remember walking out of there, right? Walking out of the restaurant and thinking, wow, am I making the wrong move? Should I stay a little bit longer to be the VP of this thing?
So it actually got in a little bit.
Yeah, because I had to make a decision. I was making a big career move. I was going to jump off this thing. But what I learned along the way, that people who worked for Michael would, try to take the clients and all this kind of crazy stuff. And in that dinner date with him, I said, listen, Michael, I promise you, I'm not taking anybody. I can promise you, when I leave here, I will never, ever talk to any of these clients that you gave me access to. Hundreds of them. Right?
Yeah.
And he says, yeah, right. And I said, no, I promise you, you won't be coming after me. Because, he would come after people for
I had to make a similar commitment.
Yeah. So the beautiful thing was that the next day, I go home and I tell my wife this story. My wife goes, well, what do you want to do? And I said, no, I've already told you what I'm going to do. This is it. We're going to leave. And so my wife said, okay. I go back to work the next day, and Michael's secretary comes over and she says, hey, Michael wants to speak to you. And I say, okay. So I go into his office. I sit down. He looks at me. He says, I believe you. He says, so you picked the 10. And I said, what do you mean? He says, you picked the 10. You picked 10 clients. And they're yours.
Wow. That was extremely generous.
That was his gift. It was a beautiful gift.
Wow, that was a gift.
Right?
Absolutely.
It was an amazing gift, right?
Right.
Because I walked out of there with 10 clients that I picked. They were mine. Right? And so I was floored. And everybody around me was floored. They could not believe that he did it, right? Because that's not his style, right? I went through and I picked him. I walked in and said, here's the 10. He says, good. They're yours.
That's amazing. So for those who are not familiar with it, because I think we both agree there's a lot that we learned from the E-Myth Academy.
Absolutely.
There's some things that we don't necessarily agree with, but there are some things that are really true, and they're always going to be true.
Yeah, universal truths.
Yeah. Can you share a couple of principles that you still believe in and teach to this day that you gained from the E-Myth Academy?
Thinking strategically.
Okay.
I think entrepreneurs need to think strategically, so they need to do that. This is his saying, you got to work on it, not in it. You've got to believe in this business development cycle, which he had, which was innovation, quantification, orchestration. So businesses should be always in this business development cycle of getting better at whatever they do. And when
that's
say
the innovation.
And innovation doesn't necessarily mean a new light bulb. It just means that you need to see what you're doing, and is your system giving you the result you want, and then adjust it so that there's the new innovation. So when you innovate, then you have to quantify that innovation so that it gives you the result that you want. And if you're getting the result you want, then you're going to orchestrate it so you get that result every time, all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't get the result that you want based on the numbers, you go back to the innovation. So there is the beautiful cycle.
Innovation, quantification, orchestration.
Absolutely. That's it.
Yeah.
I think that's those things like that. And again, those other principles of life, of believing that your business is just a piece of your life. It's not your whole life. You see all these entrepreneurs work forever a day, and they're consumed with their little baby called their business, yet they've gone through 3 divorces. They don't know who their kids are. All these kinds of crazy things happen. You see it. We've seen it, right?
It's a core thing that I saw so many times that helped me form a commitment to myself that I would not allow those things to happen to me.
Yeah. So those kinds of principles I would say to you that I think are universal for him. And systemization would be another one. You got to believe in that every frustration is because there's a lack of a system. And so, you've got to go in there and look. And sometimes, most of the time people have systems. They just may not be documented, and they sure haven't been quantified. Right. And and when I say quantified, I'm using the word quantify at the same time as I'm using, they don't know the result that they're trying to get out of the system. So until they understand the result they want, they can't
They just say, we need a system.
Yes. Right.
So they throw something at it, but there's nothing backing it up. There's no measurement of it. Therefore, there isn't really a system, and everybody forgets about it.
Right.
Doesn't have any impact.
Yeah. So it can't be orchestrated. You can't really move. In business, everybody wants that speed. Right. So I always say to people, okay, systems plus right people equals speed. So do you have the right systems in place? And do you have the right people running those systems, right, to get you the speed? Because every guy every person I talk to, even, females that come in, can we go faster? Can we get this done fast? Hey, yeah, speed. I hear you. I love speed. Speed is very sexy. All right. So do you have the right systems?
And do you have the right people?
Most of the time they don't have the right systems because they don't even know what the heck they have. And then they're questioning their own people. Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think my big takeaway, you're hitting on it, which is that concept of systemization.
Mm-hmm.
That was the part that hit me when I was in college and I read the E-Myth for the first time, and I was thinking of all the failed businesses that I had seen in the past in friends and family, and I thought that was the key. And systems to this day is still part of my result formula, which is systems, accountability, motivation. That's how I've chosen to frame it. But that one thing, I'm always going to say that's where I gained that. So you were assigned as a coach to me. You were a coach of coaches. Were there other coaches that you were also coaching at the time who have continued since then, that they've been a part of that? In football, they always talk about the coaching tree. Yeah. Right? Are there others who are on the coaching tree like me? Yeah. From you?
Yeah, they're still out there coaching. I don't know if they're have been as successful as you have. You kicked it out the ballpark, Mr. Crenshaw. So, good job to you.
Thank you. I will accept that from a mentor. I appreciate that.
So you kicked it out. But they're in there doing it and doing it the way they want to do it. And I would also, just to back up for a moment, systemization is a big thing about that E-Myth book that he wrote.
Right.
Yet I always say to people, now that I've read it many times and I worked with him and I've had a chance to see it evolve, I think the best part of that book is him telling the story of, hey, you have to have a vision. You have to believe in yourself. You have to shift the way you're thinking about your business and your life. Okay?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the bigger part of it, because if you can't shift the way you're thinking about what you're doing and the way you're doing it, if you can't ask yourself, hey, if I'm doing it is this giving me the result I want?
Well, it's stop thinking of yourself as a business owner, which is what most people do, start a business. They think about themselves as they created a job instead of thinking themselves as an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur is a very different thing. An entrepreneur, their job is to create a business, not to fulfill customer orders.
Right.
And that is a very powerful part of it. And let's be honest, as coaches, and I don't do what you do anymore on the one-on-one coaching, but I did it for many years. And we could never really start helping someone be successful until they accepted that they were truly an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was the big hurdle. And that's what I'm saying. Systemization is easy. Everybody gets and says, I need systemization. Yeah. But really, I like to say, if you get stinking thinking, it's going to be stinking coming out, right? It doesn't matter. So you have to shift that whole thing around. I just want to say that about that because, that's the part that I learned from him was, it's the business is just a piece of you. You've got to really be clear about what you want your life to be about and realize that business is a vehicle to go get what you want out of your life. Like I giggle at you all the time, right? You got your oasis.
From my book, The Power of Having Fun.
Exactly. So all of a sudden I'm emailing you something and I get back I'm Dave Crenshaw and I'm on an oasis with my family and I will be gone.
That right there, by the way, is the clip that we're going to use at the part of this show. That moment.
Go for it. And so, but I think it's the most beautiful email response when it comes across my desk. Because when it comes across my desk, I say to myself, there he is doing what he said he's going to do when he said he's going to do it.
Including having fun.
Having fun. There's your oasis. And you pack it in there. So that's that.
Okay. So here's something I really want to highlight because I think it's going to be helpful to everybody.
Okay.
Every person, when they're growing a business or they're in sales, they've got a system that works for them. They've got a way of going about doing it. Your way of getting clients, it's a little old school, but it's so fantastic because it works for you and it works for your personality. So what have you done traditionally to go out and get people to convince them to start working with a crazy guy like you to help their business?
Yeah, see, I'm not as sexy as you. I can't do the writing all the books and I can't get on the YouTube and all this video stuff and LinkedIn. I can't do all those kinds of things you do. It's just not my style, right? So I'm a cold caller. I love to pick up the phone. Still to this day.
Yeah.
Still to this day. And I just have a system. Hi, my name's David Winford. I help small businesses all over the world build multi-million-dollar businesses. Would you like for me to find you whatever, $50,000, $100,000, $10,000 in your business in 45 minutes. What would you do with that extra money?
I love it.
Right. So that's the system.
Okay. And I want to pause for a second because here's a moment where I'm remembering, because you're asking a question. The question is powerful. It's not just the call, which is strong.
Yeah.
It's not just I'm going to find the money. It's the question, what would you do with that money? Because when I speak on stage, I say, what would you do if you had an extra 40 hours a month?
Yeah.
And the reason why that question is so great is because now you're asking them to internalize the value of what it is that you're presenting.
Absolutely.
Now they are ascribing a value to it, and you didn't have to do the work.
I didn't come up with it.
Yeah, it's their choice.
Is their vision, is their value.
Okay, so someone's listening to this, and they're going, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's old school.
I pick up the phone, I call somebody, but yet it still works for you. How many calls do you have to make to get someone to engage in that conversation with you?
I think it just depends. Like, again, at this stage in my career, I don't have to call 10 people if I don't want to call.
Yeah, because so much of what you do now is referral based.
Yeah. But what I do call. I still call. I still like to do the practice because I still like to find diamonds in the rough.
And what are you doing? You looking it up on Google? Like where?
My clients Dave Crenshaw is a client of mine. He lives in Salt Lake City. I have 4 other clients in Salt Lake in the Utah greater area here. They were all referrals, right? But if I wanted it, and I've done it before, I just start calling people in different towns and saying, "Hey," I give my spiel, and they say, "Well, what do you know about Utah?" I say, "Well, by the way, I have 4 clients in Utah." And so they're already saying, "Oh, somebody else is using him in this state."
But still, that question: how many calls do you have to make to get someone to?
It depends. Sometimes it's 1.
Wow. When someone hears that you're making cold calls, the assumption is that you're going to get a lot of no's until you get to a yes. So
I think you get a lot of no's if you don't come to it with a system.
Wow.
If you come in with a system like, "Hi, my name's David Winford," because I'm coming at it as a place to help them. If you don't want my help, that's how I look at it. Click, and I move off to the next guy.
It wasn't meant to be anyway because we're not fit for each other.
I don't care, right? So yeah, sometimes you have to get 10 calls. Sometimes you have to make 20 calls. Sometimes, it just depends. But that was at the very beginning. But now I'm so smooth at it now. I don't want to make it sound arrogant or anything.
No, but it's the truth.
But, I'm just saying that, when I call, I'm saying something of authority. Hi. Even if I get the gatekeeper, right? The gatekeeper says, "Hey, he's busy." I say, "Well, okay, please let him know that I'm calling because I owe him $40,000.
I love that.
Right?
I love that.
Or I owe him $10,000. Right? And so...
And you're fully intending to give that consultation to them for free.
Yeah.
Right. You're totally fine if you end that conversation, they get the value and they don't do anything with
job,
you.
And I tell them this. I say, "Listen, my job is to find you strategies. You will see where this money is. And I'm going to give you the strategies so that you could get it. And let me tell you something, Mr. Client. You're not just going to get the $40,000 now, but you're going to get the $40,000 every year from here to eternity." Okay? So it's up to you. If you just want to stop at the $40,000, that's your problem, not mine. But I'm telling you what I'm about to show you. I'm going to give you the strategy. You can do it on your own. Or if you'd like my help, we'll have that conversation. We'll get that help.
And what sort of thing are you helping them find? I know it's several different things that you could possibly find because as a business coach, you never know quite what is the path. But give us an example of 1 or 2 ways where you have found that much value for someone in a 45-minute call.
First of all, they're not tracking anything.
In terms of their sales?
In terms of leads, terms of conversions, terms of they don't have a pricing strategy. They don't know how to keep their clients coming back for more. They're not paying attention to their bottom line. They've commingled so much stuff. One of the first things I do when they become my client is I say, "Hey, you got to surrender your Visa card to me, your Visa card statement to me." And they go, "Why?" I said, "I want to see all the junk you got on your Visa, on your credit card." And they go, "How do you know there's junk in there?" I said, "Trust me, there's junk." So you start to go through it. Now I'm going through the credit card with them. So I'm asking them, "Can you tell me what this is? Can you share with me what this $99.97 thing is?" "Well, I don't even know what that is." "Oh, okay. Can you put that down? Can you just highlight that?" Because it's $99.97 every month. And I don't know how long it's been in existence.
So that's at least 1,000 or more every year.
You know what I'm saying? Just that one line item. Sometimes they're $400 things on there. Sometimes they're bigger, right? So that's one thing when they come on. But before they come on, the strategy that you're asking me is, as I'm going in to look at things, areas, you know, most clients, most guys who've been in business, they're getting leads. There's not a problem getting leads. They just suck at conversion.
Yes.
They don't have a system.
Yeah, we're advertising, we're bringing in people to learn about our company. But the question is, how well are you actually converting? And people just think, oh, well, we just need more leads. But that's not the case. You need to have a better system for converting them.
Onboarding them,
Yeah.
Onboarding them, turning them from prospects to customers. Let me say it differently. Turning from prospects to lifetime customers. That's what all the gurus say, right? Lifetime customer. But I believe in it. Because again, once he's my customer, he should be my customer forever. I don't have to re-get him. The most expensive part of business is generating a new lead, right? So you're going to tell me that you get, 10 leads a day times 7, that's 70 leads, but you don't know the conversion? What are you telling me? So if they tell me they don't know the conversion, just by me showing them ways that they can grasp their conversion ratio, and then on top of that saying, hey, let's just say we're stupid and we just get 10% increase. So let's say you were at 20 and we go 10. That difference in money is usually more than $40,000.
Right.
Because their average ticket price is bigger than that, right?
I want to pause on that. It is usually more than $40,000 if they're the right size of customer, right? Because you're working with people who have to have somewhat of an established business, not someone who's just starting from the ground up.
Yeah, I don't have fun with those guys. They're not enough pain. Right?
Not enough pain and not enough, I use the word chaos. There's not enough momentum. There's not enough chaos.
A good way to say it.
Because, and when I say chaos, I'm meaning it in a halfway positive thing, right? Because a lot of people that I have coached have been very successful. They've just sold themselves into chaos.
Yeah.
They've grown things. They've gotten all these employees and everything, and then they don't know what the heck to do with it. When they've generated a beautiful mess, is also a phrase that I like. They've created this beautiful mess. Now they need help.
That's a beautiful way to say it.
Systemizing it, as borrowing from E-Myth Academy, innovating, quantification, orchestration.
Yeah.
They've got to have something to do that with rather than, I'm just starting out my business and I don't have a customer yet. That's really hard to justify that kind of value at that level.
But I still usually can find the money because, again, they don't know what they don't know. Right?
Sure.
I always tell people 3 things are true. Right?
Let me do this with you.
Okay.
It's lonely at the top, difficult to self-correct.
And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. There it is right there. So and those are just universal truths for me. And so I know they're universal truths for most people. And you don't have to be in business to have those. It's lonely at the top. Yeah. CEO, blah, 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 right? A manager, he's lonely at the top. He doesn't know where he's going all the time. He's very difficult to self-correct, and he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And so because I'm coming from that place, and I have the experience with it, I know that I could do it with the small business, but I greatly appreciate what you're saying. It's not fun to do it with them because it's a lot harder to find it. Okay. So
it puts way too much pressure on them and you.
Yes.
Right. If I'm working with a business where a 10% increase is $100,000 to their bottom line, which is still business size isn't that much. That's a lot easier for me to justify my existence than a 10% increase is $1,000 to their bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I'm costing more than their highest cost thing.
Yeah, and that's another thing I've done forever. I always had this mantra that says, I'm going to pay for myself in the first 90 days.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a big believer, and I really I don't tell this. I'm about to tell this to the world, whoever listens to this thing.
Yeah.
My real mindset is I want to get paid. I want to pay for myself in 30 days. But I say out loud to everybody, hey, within 90 days, I'm going to pay for myself. Right. And you'll see that.
Interesting.
Right? And then I even go so far as saying, hey, whatever you've invested with me in the year, if I haven't 4 times that one return, I'll work for free until we 4 times it.
Yes.
So whatever they're paying me,
Yeah. I've used the rule of 3 in my head, the rule of 5, which says for every $1 you spend to me, you should see $3 back to your bottom line.
Yeah.
Because if we have a relationship like that, you'd be crazy not to keep working with me.
Exactly.
And every relationship that you have with a coaching client in small business has a life cycle, right? There's a period of time where it is worth 3 to 5 times every time they're working with you. And then there's a point at which maybe you're not providing that value because we've already worked together for 8-9 years, and now you know what I'm going to say every time.
Or the relationship becomes different, right?
Right.
So they're paying you for a different experience.
Yes, exactly. But I love that idea, and I think it's a principle of success, not just in business, but in your career.
Yeah.
Which is provide more value than what people are spending on you. Yeah. This should not be a one-to-one transaction. If it is, you're never going to grow. But if you're giving way beyond what you're getting paid, they'd be crazy not to keep working with you. They'd be crazy not to promote you. They'd be crazy not to make you a part of their life.
Well, that gets back to being invaluable.
Yes.
Right? They don't realize that. I hear it all the time. I get to work with management teams too. And the guy, I'm dealing with a manager, he says, hey, I need a raise. I said, wait a minute. You need a raise? I said, so before you walk in the door, let's add up all the money that you made him. Because it's easier for you to walk in the door and say, hey, Mr. Crenshaw, I've made you $1 million and you don't pay me $30,000.
Right.
And you get to say, "Ooh, you've made me $1 million. Yeah, I think you're worth $100,000. Well, or what would you like?" And you say to me $100,000. Okay, heck yeah, it's 10%. Done deal. Way to go. I'll give you 10%. It's much easier doing that. But most people want to go in and get a pay raise before they deliver anything.
Right.
It's the wrong mindset.
No, it is. And it even gets to one of my core values. In fact, it's the first value. And the first value I believe in is give first.
Yeah, there you go.
Stop trying to ask for something before you gave something. Give first. And even sometimes give without the expectation of return.
Absolutely.
And if you do that, the value will always come back to you. People will recognize that they're getting far more out of it.
100-fold.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you become invaluable. So therefore, you're going to stay longer. And then all of a sudden, they realize this year you might have made $1 million. Next year, you might have made 1.5. It's not a problem to increase in the money.
Right.
You know, I've never met an entrepreneur that's stingy. Have you?
Rarely.
Rarely.
I'm not going to say never, but rarely.
Okay. I'll say rarely with you too. Because most of mine, I've had guys who say, hey, you know,
they overpay.
Yes.
They give equity.
Yes.
Overgive profit sharing. Yes, absolutely.
And that's when they get aggravated, frustrated, PO'd because they feel like they've been taken advantage of. And then there's the crazy cycle of, it's chaos. They think it's chaos.
Well, and there's even the psychological baggage aspect of it, thinking that you can buy loyalty through that kind of stuff, which doesn't work.
It doesn't work in the long run for sure.
So I'm going to need to step aside for just a moment. There's so much to David Winford's story, and I wanted to make sure we didn't miss any of it. So I'm breaking this interview into 2 parts. So we'll release part 2 next week. And please come back and listen. You won't want to miss it.
You've been listening to the Dave Crenshaw Success Project, hosted by my dad, Dave Crenshaw, and produced by Invaluable Incorporated. Sound editing was done by my brother Stratton Crenshaw. Research and assistant production by Victoria Bedez. Voiceover by me, Darcy Crenshaw. And the music is by Ryan Brady via Pond 5 licensing. Please subscribe to the Dave Crenshaw Success Project on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. And please don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. See you next time.